Now, a race factor has been played into the situation as far as, because everybody knows Quentin is white. Now, would it, do you think Tarantino was a good pick for this film? Or do you think it should have been a director of color to give a different point of view? Matt?
I want to say something, and it's kind of on that, it's kind of on the tangent at the same time. I think, before we can answer that, I think we really need to take a step back and look at what slavery is, because when you watch this movie, I feel like a lot of people miss the point of it. Think about historically. We know that slavery was generally between whites and blacks, generally speaking. There were some exceptions to that. But one thing that we tend to overlook often is that really it was economics that was driving the whole thing. If you watch this movie carefully, you'll find that it's really not a movie about racism at all. The biggest foils that you'll see is the character that Leonardo DiCaprio plays. And what you'll find is that race is not on his mind for the entire movie. What is he thinking about? Money. That's how he's, that's his number one concern, his primary concern. And a lot of slave masters were the same way. Now, the people that you'll see that actually did have racial bigotry inside of them were generally your poorer characters. The characters that you saw, for instance, in the dog scene, where Leonardo DiCaprio is standing there and he says something, and there's another guy, white guy standing behind him, and the guy spits and says, "Yup." Those are the characters that you'll see in the movie that harbor the most racism, and that's really how it was. When we talk about things like the KKK, most of your KKKs and your other extremist organizations were composed of poor white people who harbored racism or harbored anger toward blacks for competing for jobs and whatnot. So I think when we talk about should the director have been black or should the director have been white, honestly I think we need to look at it from a larger than race standpoint, because I really feel like as a society we still don't really understand what slavery was really all about. Yes, race played a part of it, but I think sometimes we get so caught up on the race aspect that we miss out on what was really underneath it, which was greed.
Ken?
I actually think it is a good question. I just think that when you ask the question, you just have to be real about your racial biases.
That's true.
Very true.
I think, sorry.
No, it's cool, it's cool. And that's actually going back to what Ms. Kimberly said. I mean, I watched the Oscars last night, and you know, I watched Quentin Tarantino get an award, I watched Christopher Waltz get an award, but I didn't see Jamie Foxx get an award, I didn't see Samuel Jackson get an award, I didn't see Kerry Washington get an award, and my racial bias, I'm like, yo, that's not cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, and when I thought about the movie, like when I left the movie, I'm gonna get into that eventually, like me going to see the movie, blah, blah, blah. But I asked myself, I said, would you have these same type of feelings if Aaron McGruder made the Boondocks created? Would I have the same type of feelings? And being real with myself, the answer is no. I wouldn't have those same type of feelings. So I think race does play a role as it relates to the director. And I'm honest enough with myself to say that.
I actually like the fact that Tarantino made the movie because, one, he did show a serious topic. Two, he made it kind of a comical relief. I.e., the guys when they was on the horse and they were talking about cutting the hole because they couldn't see. You know, I don't think another director would have showed that. And that was kind of, you know, you watch the movie, you get so angry and you see all that, then you see them fussing at each other fighting, you like, oh, okay, it's a little loud, ha-ha, you hate it. Now, going to what you said, Tarantino won the Oscar, the other man won the Oscar, but Jamie Foxx didn't win the Oscar. Right. I'm actually glad Jamie didn't win the Oscar for the reason that, like you said earlier, he was selling out. Okay. And I don't think a brother that sell out should win no Oscar.
Brandon.
I was just going to say, I think about that question the way I think about when people start up the discussion, do you mind the N-word? And it's okay if SHANEEN and I are talking like, yeah, you know what I'm saying, that's my nigga. But if someone that's not the same color as me came at me like that, I would get offended. Why? The waters are very muddy. And I think that that's the way that I feel about this movie. And now that we've been talking about it, maybe I understand that I'm not ready to laugh at slavery. I don't think that's funny. I don't think it was funny then. Because what happened then affects a whole lot about the way we act now. This discussion right now is in existence because of it. And because I don't think that that's something to laugh at or to laugh about, because look at the result. I mean, we're still here suffering from that. And you're right, it's not about race, but when you live in places that are the cotton belt like Georgia, then you have to think about that twice than living in another place. So I think that maybe I feel the same way Ken feels, because I'm not ready for you to sit here and tell me my story. Because right now I feel like that's my story. I don't feel like, because he's Italian, I don't feel like you have the grounds to tell me my own story. I really don't.
Will you ever be ready?
No, I don't believe, until I move out of Augusta, Georgia. When people are ready to think twice about the way people's names are spelled on an application, then I'll be ready. When people are no longer willing to just give people money because of who they know and their mom and daddy and because they live here and all, then I'll be ready. But until then, if my children grow up in Augusta, Georgia, I'm not going to think that that is funny. Because it's a very serious issue here. Yeah, we can talk about it and laugh in the context of a movie because we're not in it. And we don't see any of our family members in it, but it's very serious. And I feel like I didn't appreciate it because it was from someone that was not ever in that type of lifestyle, was not related to anybody that ever lived like that.
How do you know that he's telling your story? How do you know that he's not telling an older African-American woman that he encountered and said, you know, my grandmother, she always said she could, oh my goodness, she would turn on the white folks in a minute. She can't wait, because I know my grandmother saw Django and she loved every minute of it, because my grandmother was raised in South Carolina, and because, believe it or not, they were thinking that. I know I was, you know, with the history books that I've read, you know, I couldn't understand, well, why didn't they stand up for each other? I mean, you know, they were strong too. Why didn't they just form a gang? Or, you know, why didn't they just turn on them? So how did you know that he wasn't sitting in a coffee shop one day and heard a conversation, or have close African-American friends who he says, you know what, it wasn't right, and heard them sitting around talking and said, you know what, y'all can't speak out because y'all don't have funds and y'all can't write a movie, but I can do it. Come sit down and talk to me right now and tell me what you think and put it in a movie and see what everybody else responds to. You don't know that. That's what I'm saying. You cannot hold this man responsible for what it is that he wants to tell. He has money, and if you want to learn real history or you want to go to the history books, that's when you go and you buy the autobiography of Harriet Tubman.
Sorry.
Okay, well, two things. First of all, I mean, I definitely have to say, I'm not saying about, you know, this movie in particular, but I know you were saying that economics was, you know, a main driving force behind that, which, you know, economics is important, but you have to, and I think, you know, she pointed something out earlier. She said that's how they thought of us as dog food and stuff like that. That still has to be, it's not totally about money. Because even, you know, the guy, if you remember that scene when he was about to whip that girl, and he's reading the scripture saying how to, you know, well, you know, how to keep them in line and everything like this. I mean, it was not about you not being of economics. It was about a hatred and thinking that you're less than, you're not a person. That is what slavery is about. It's not about economics as a part of it. Yes, it was a business, but I just think that we need to be clear. And then the second thing, I think I lost my second.
Yeah. Hold on. She's on the right hand question.
My question is, why is it that we as African Americans get offended when a white person steps up into our story? Like, why can't we take that initiative and tell our own story if we're so offended?
Did you, when she was talking about telling a story, well, even just African American stories being told, period. Do you know Red Tails, when George Lucas, who is a famous director, how many times they say, no, he had to do his own distribution. It's not just about a white person coming up and telling the story. I think he did an amazing job with that story. It's just the story being told, period.
You know what I'm
being able
saying?
to get out there.
No, I'm saying in general, because like, for instance, there's the lady at my campus that decided to touch on the Augusta riot, and she is Caucasian. And a lot of people are offended that she decided to step up to talk about what happened in the Augusta riot, talking to black people, Caucasian people, all of that. They got really offended.
Because we just like people are lazy and we complain all day long about what they should and shouldn't do, and won't step up ourselves and do it.
Be careful with we. Be careful
Yes.
with we. He's not on we as the people.
Anybody else? Hold on, but this is on there right here.
I was gamer one day. Well, my friend, he's like, I won't say his name, but he came in, you know, all excited. Hey, what's up? How you doing? And then he was like, yo, what's up, my nigga? You know, and then like, and I had to pause for a second because in my mind I was like, I was kind of mad, but at the same time I had to think like, should I really be mad at this dude for calling me the N-word when we say it to each other on a day-to-day basis, you know? When we call each other, you know, my nigga or this, and then it was like, you know, I should be mad because I understand that, you know, we have been through, you know, as a people, been through slavery or whatnot, but at the same time, it's like, you know, we call each other this on the day-to-day, you know, saying, oh, what's up, my nigga, on the phone, my nigga, you know.
No, right. Like, Brandy made a point, kind of just, but, you know, kind of serious too. Like, be careful with what we, and I don't use the N-word at all. I hate it. And to that point, I think this is an important point as it relates to this discussion. Great quote by the incomparable Django Unchained. Black people are not monolithic. I mean, we have different thoughts. We have different. I mean, even you can look at this panel and look at how we choose to approach this film. You see different viewpoints. You see unique viewpoints. And even when you talk about telling our story, I think we have to have that mindset, first of all, with something that's been mentioned on this panel, the willingness to do it. But then once you get past the willingness to do it, you have to also understand the resources that it takes to do it. So when you combine those factors, how many black, I mean, even like Spike Lee, and people are like, oh, Spike Lee, whatever. I feel like Spike Lee has been blackballed in a way. And I feel like some of the frustrations that he has as it relates to Django are based on the fact that he feels like that Hollywood really won't let him push this type of movie, whereas they'll let Mr. Tarantino push this type of movie, and I think that's where you see some of his frustrations from. But to that effect, I would love to see us kind of cultivate, you know, directors. They don't necessarily have to be black or be white, but folks who are willing to accurately depict the stories that we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
I want to kind of answer your question, I'm not part of the panel or anything like that. Tarantino, she brought up the fact that he was Italian, you know, grew up in the 70s, you know, watching a lot of these grindhouse classics, which consists of black exploitation films, martial arts films, huge genre. And he actually has like such a big respect for those types of movies, which includes spaghetti westerns. And you know, one of his first movies was Jackie Brown. Loved the movie. Touched subject as well. And when you think about it like that, he's paying homage to those genres, and he's one of those few directors that will choose to be like, no, I kind of want to say something, and to get people's attention, like everybody's been saying, like, you know, I have to, you know, throw it out there. I have to show it a lot of blood. When he made Kill Bill, you know, he was paying homage to the, you know, old school martial arts from Shaw Brothers office when he made Jackie Brown. The same thing for black exploitation. And with Django Unchained, he actually, you know, he made a mix. You know, he was like, I want to do spaghetti western, but at the same time, I'm going to incorporate slavery, you know, like, and call it Southerner, which is really, it's actually like another kind of black exploitation movie. I don't think you'll find another director that's going to be willing to do something like that. So,
Can I speak on that?
Yeah, Matthew.
This is one thing that really frustrates me about this, you know, entire discussion. Is, and you know, I'm putting on a Black History program with my kids at school, and one of the hardest things I'm trying to get them to understand is that when we talk about race, and we talk about race relations, and we talk about healing our country, when I was young, I was always taught that it was all about us coming together. And by coming together, I mean that if I'm black and somebody else is white, and they see what I go through and what I experience as a black man, that they sympathize and empathize with my situation and want to step up to me and assist me in my struggle and whatnot, and vice versa. If I see them going through something, they may be white, I'm black, but I want to step over there and help them as well. I feel like with this film that Quentin Tarantino was trying to do that, and he's meeting so much resistance. If you really dissect that movie, there were a lot of things that Quentin Tarantino put into that film that were designed to help strengthen the black community and help us call attention to a lot of issues that people are really ignoring. And it's like, because the color of his skin is not right, we're totally dismissing anything positive about this film. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Django is illiterate and he's on top of this cliff, and the guy that's the bounty hunter, that's his sidekick, well, he's a sidekick at that point, but shows him a bounty sign, teaches him how to read it. And that scene was special to me because, especially being a high school teacher, I know so many African American kids who are illiterate or not reading on grade level. And here it is, you have an African American hero who also struggles with reading, and somebody's helping him learn how to read. And if you notice in that scene, never during that entire scene does the other character laugh at him for not being able to read. Instead of laughing at him and making jokes about him, he sits there and helps him gain information. There's just so many different subtle things that Quentin Tarantino puts into this film. And I think that if we could put race aside for a second and really look at the film for what it is, and put accuracy aside for a second and really look at what he puts in this film, it's really a good film. There's a lot of subtle, important themes in the film, but we get so caught up on the fact that it's not coming from our mouth, and it's not coming from our hand, and it's not coming from our mind, and it just totally dismisses all the effort. And I really feel like that's a shame.
Amen. All right. Ken. I totally agree with everything that was said. It's just that without the charged topic of race and the controversy that comes along with that, it's not, I mean, not only is it not going to be the box office success that it was,
That was the biggest grossing film, just FYI, y'all don't know. Go ahead.
but it's not going to elicit the type of discussions that we're having here. So I feel like that really when it comes to race, again, it's just about honesty and realness. Just be willing to talk about, your biases, your views on race. And when we come to, when we come to the table, when we come to panels like this, be honest with them, but be honest with them in the spirit of, working things out and hopefully, leaving like better people and more informed people.
Cool. All right. Last question here we're going to have from me is, do you think more films like Django Unchained should be made? Why or why not? And everybody will have an opportunity to answer this question. I want to go in random order, starting with SHANEEN.
What? Is that question for me?
We're not. We kind of run out of time. So
okay.
It's all good. We're going to go with, yeah. Hold on. Do you think more films like Django Unchained should be made? Why or why not?
Yes, because again, like I said, I'm a big advocate for entertainment and just and art, but also, yes, because even though I don't hold him responsible for it, it does call attention to a lot of situations that we endure. Just like going back to what he said, there was also another scene that, I appreciated it, like when they were fighting, or I forget, but Leonardo DiCaprio sent everybody out and he told Sheba, and he said, y'all go and do something, and he was like, Sheba, you can stay. And she goes, I know you didn't mean me. And I said, see, that's why we as African American women today can't get along, because it was things like that started the mentality of us fighting against each other and started the jealousy, and us pulling each other down. Even when they saw Django on a horse and the other guys were in cages, and you just saw them just staring at them, that started us pulling our own race down. So yes, I think it needs to be told, and I don't care who it's told by, but the thing is, if you're going to tell it, I don't hold you responsible for it. If you want to say it's a true story, then yes, then that is when you are responsible for making sure you get all the facts. Just like as reporters, we need to make sure we have all the facts because we are telling you the news. But if I'm going to sit there and say I'm going to write a story, you can't hold me responsible for what it is I tell you, but I do appreciate when it's told. That's all.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm for the arts, so I definitely think everybody has different viewpoints and different ways to express whatever it is that you want to express. I think you just go into it, to me, knowing that this was not a movie about slavery. This was just an entertainment movie. Now, my only thing is, I think when people are saying, well, get out there and tell your story and say what you want to say, I definitely agree with that. But you have to understand, just the slavery really does go back to that, why that's so hard. Even with Hollywood trying to, like I was even saying, even when you have a white director, George Lucas, Star Wars, backing a movie like Red Tails, he couldn't even get anybody to pick it up because it's a black story. They don't think that it's going to go international, or you're going to be able to take it and market that in Europe and different places for people to see it. I I mean, being an actress, I mean, I feel that too. You know, when you're going out for roles, everybody's, when you're talking about pitting people against each other, there's only a certain amount of roles. It's one black girl in, a movie or something like that. So anyway, I just think you just have to know the history, how that history still affects what's going on today, what's going on in Hollywood, and who can make movies and stuff like that.
Ken, I feel the same way about this question that I feel about Black History Month. And when I say that, I mean, like, you're trying to take a whole history of the people and you're trying to put it in 28 or 29 days. And it's just, it's bogus. Dr. Karlton T came up with Negro History Week. I think that was 1926. 1970, Kent State celebrated the first Black History Month. But when Dr. Woodson came up with Negro History Week, the idea was that ultimately that Black history will become a part of American history, and that Black history will become a regular part of, everyday, classroom teachings, of everyday curriculum. But what do we see now? We see people trying to cram all of these facts, and we end up hearing about the same people doing the same things, the civil rights movement, and we don't really get to understand and appreciate Black history as American history, as it should be appreciated. And I feel the same way, when you ask this question, should more movies like Django Unchained be made? And my answer is no, not necessarily because of what was depicted in Django, but I feel like there's so much more of a story that we have to tell, and so many more stories that we have to tell that haven't been told. So that's what I want to see. I want to see more, more diversity and more, I guess the word is consistency.
Xavier. Tarantino, this obviously is a debate, so it's a very, it's my opinion. Tarantino is one of my favorite actors. Director, I'm sorry. I like his movies, and I'm perfectly cool with how he made it, and I think he should make another one, and another one, and another one. Okay. Do I think somebody else should make it? I wouldn't mind, but I'm not selling out when I say this, but I'd rather see Tarantino make a movie than I would see a black man make a movie. And the reason why I say that, if I see a black man make a movie, I'm basically going to be looking at another Roots. Or I'm basically looking at another Sesame from Color Purple. When Tarantino make it, he's going to show both sides of it, but also, like I said, he's going to show that kind of comical relief, so you don't just take the whole point serious. If you want to look at something real serious like that, then that's when I would say grab a documentary. Because like you said, you can't really fit, centuries and centuries and decades of black history in 28 days. And so you can't really fit that into a 2-hour, 3-hour movie. You need a long documentary to do that. Brandon.
I would say, originally when I came in here, my idea of the movie being like blasphemous, in my opinion, I would say no. But hearing everyone else's opinion and understanding what their interpretation was, if it was a movie that was intended to have more than one thing, then I say yes, because I can appreciate that sort of art. Granted, like Shaneen said, your art isn't art until it offends somebody, so I can't sit here and tell you, don't make a movie, don't make a movie. But on the other hand, I agree with Ken. I feel like there's other, more important stories to be told, and they don't necessarily have to be documentaries. They could just be good stories about who invented what or whatever, just someone's backstory that needs to be told, because you're right, Black history is not necessarily considered a part of American history. So I would personally prefer to hear one of those stories before I would like to see another Django.
Matthew.
Okay. I would like to see more films like this made with education. And by with education, I mean this, and Ken alluded to it earlier. You can make art and make mistakes in the art, or make it so that people don't understand what you're trying to say, but a lot of it comes down to how you interpret it. If you've never played a guitar before, then you have a hard time appreciating when you're hearing a good guitar being played. Well, if you're not a film critic, a lot of times you'll watch a movie and not catch all the undertones. And even right now, we're still talking about the relevance of this movie to slavery, and as I watched the movie, I didn't think it was about slavery at all. I still think this movie is really a discussion about black modernity, 2013, things that have happened within the last 10, 20 years, and we're still talking about slavery. So I think without that education, no, but if we can educate people so that they can appreciate what they're seeing, then yeah, I would like to see a lot more of these movies made. But first, after we digest this one.
Go ahead, Storm. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is another. I just want to say, I hope that everybody can come out this weekend. Unavailable. I'm starting a discussion. It's unavailable. It's going to be at 7 p.m. at the Imperial Theater Saturday, and we have tickets starting at $15, so it's affordable for college students. Please come out and support
Really,
the arts.
shameless
Thank you.
plug.
Thank you.
Shameless plug.
Come on out.
Does anybody from the audience have any questions they would like to ask the panel? Yes, Danielle Jones.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, gentlemen in the middle, what other undertones did you catch? I'm just curious. Did you see, like, that were related to 2013?
Okay, let me think for a second.
Give me one undertone.
Say one?
Give me one undertone. Two.
Definitely the relationship between African Americans and the industry. And by industry, I mean music, athleticism. That scene with the Mandingo Warriors definitely was a direct reflection of that. The way that they make us compete against each other, the way that we only get crumbs from the table as a result of it, and we think that we're coming up and whatnot. Think about how many rap artists you know right now that are making albums that are, putting our people down and making us be depicted in a negative light, and they're making X amount of money off of it, which they really, most of the time, they're lying about that. But think about how much the people are getting paid who are their A&Rs and things like that, the ones who actually get them signed. That's exactly what those Mandingo Warriors were supposed to represent. Also, and this one was kind of a subtle one, if you watch the scene when they're on the plantation with a guy named Big Daddy, the one that they call him, that was really supposed to be a reflection of the welfare system. Because if you notice, you look around that plantation, what you mostly see is African American females. You don't see any of the males around. So it's kind of like how you have so many, and we know that it's not true, it's really a media portrayal, but it's the idea of African American women who are dependent on the system. The plantation represents that system, and he represents the government basically. That's why they call him Big Daddy. So there's all kind of little subtle things in there that have nothing to do with slavery whatsoever. But when we start talking about slavery, all that stuff kind of gets swept under the rug. So there's a lot more to it than what's depicted.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of symbolism with white being overshadowed with red. For example, like you see there's a shooting scene in the middle of the woods. You see the snow gets splattered with blood. Another scene with cotton gets splattered with blood, and then one of the final scenes with DiCaprio being shot right in his heart with the white flower, red. What do you guys think of that? What is he? This is more of an artistic question, I understand, but any kind of symbolism. I'm just very curious. You guys have.
On red, get on white, can't clean.
That's really true, though.
Well, one thing I want to say that's kind of akin to that. First of all, of course, that the legacy of Europeans, and no offense to any Europeans in class, but the legacy of Europeans in America has been violence. Violence really has paved the way for a lot of things. But I also want to talk about the bounty hunter that was working with Django. I thought he was very significant because if you pay attention, he was German. And I like that because normally when you think German, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? The Holocaust and the Nazis, right? But instead of the Holocaust and the Nazis, what you have is a German person who's actually helping an African American and who doesn't believe in slavery. He's a businessman, but he doesn't believe in all the violence. You see, when the man gets ripped apart by the dogs, he's the one that gets sick. And that's very important because when we think about slavery, so often we think about how America has this brutalized form of slavery, but the rest of the world during slave days was looking at America and saying, what the heck is going on over there? Now these are white people in Europe who are looking at white people in America and saying, your form of slavery is not, this is not humane, this is not something that's acceptable. So I felt like he was a very key character in that regard. That's why I love this movie. There's so much that we have not discussed in this film. Even with this discussion, we haven't touched on a lot of things that were actually in the film. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. Hopefully I have an unsolicited copy in my possession, but I'm going to watch it again tonight and see what you were referring to with the colors. But that's really significant.
Any other questions? No. All right.
I got one.
Oh, Lord.
No. I got a question for you.
No, you don't.
What did you feel? How did you feel about it? want to hear your point of view.
Mr. Director, writer.
Okay. My viewpoint on the movie. I understood what Quentin Tarantino was trying to do. And I appreciate him wanting to tell this story. And yes, I do feel like we need more movies like this because, you know, I'm a filmmaker, and like I said, at the end of the day, I'm tired of seeing all the Medias. Let's just keep it real. So we need more movies that shows the whole African American diaspora. You know, you got people who like the Medias, but we need more movies like this. It's so much to us as African Americans. We need those stories told, and like everybody's saying, you know, you can't cram. I agree, you can't cram all of our history into an hour and 30 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. So I do feel like we need more movies like that touch on these issues that we have these type of debates. Now, did I enjoy the movie? No, I didn't. I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't enjoy it. I mean, because honestly, I couldn't. When I go to a movie, even if it is creative freedom, I'm not. Quentin Tarantino is an artist. I'm an artist. I get it. Do your creativity? I'm not holding you to a pedestal or whatever. You know, you got parents that only need to teach you what's right and what's wrong. I get it. But for me as a viewer, when I go to a movie, I like to get lost into what's going on. It was hard for me to get lost in that. I was just so blind in my eyes because I don't like violence like that. So I was covering my eyes in certain parts. I just couldn't get involved. You know, that's just me. But I mean, kudos to him for stepping out and doing it. I mean, you know, everybody don't have the, excuse the word, the balls to do that. So I think, you know, kudos to him for doing it. That's just my spin. I'm gonna go back there. Thank y'all. Again, I want to thank everybody on the panel: Ken, Brandi, Matthew, Shaneen, Zay, and Shatari. Thank y'all so much for